Welcome to Talking WoW, the podcast where we talk about World of Warcraft, believe it or not. My name is Tom, and today we're going to be talking about what World of Warcraft could learn from other MMORPGs. And to do that, we've brought along a very special guest. We have content creator and MMORPG dabbler ShantymanGaming from the 10th Divine podcast, which is an Elder Scrolls Online podcast, in case you didn't know. Welcome, Shanty. We are so happy to have you on the show here today.
I'm delighted to be here.
And, of course, we have the co-host, Marty. Hey, Marty.
Hey, I also dabble.
So, yes, World of Warcraft is an MMORPG, but there's many MMORPGs. Shanty, I think it's probably a good place to start, though, by just maybe getting a little background on your World of Warcraft history before we, start talking about other MMOs, because we have to, we're talking WoW, we have to talk about World of Warcraft just a little bit.
Sure thing. I actually like to refer to myself as both a BC baby and a BFA baby.
Okay.
I originally, first tried playing when it, during vanilla on Army Wi-Fi in 2006. That didn't go so hot. So I gave it up till I got home and had better internet. And then in BC, that was the first time I played ridiculous numbers of hours and didn't even get close to level cap because leveling was a beast back then.
It was a grind.
And then due to life situations, I had to step away from the game, and around the tail end of Legion and, the pre-patch event for BFA, the Old Soldier cinematic actually came across my Facebook feed. And having been an Orc and Horde main before, it just tugged at the heartstrings, and I went and ordered BFA, and aside from a hiatus due to the ABK mess, I've been subbed ever since.
That's so cool. I'm just getting a little bit emotional thinking about the Old Soldier cinematic. Just sitting there, just was like, I can see how that potentially brought you back into the game. And yeah, so that's a bit of Shanty's history in the game there. And I know, Shanty, you've played other MMOs as well. You have an Elder Scrolls Online podcast. So what other MMOs are you putting a bit of time into as well?
Final Fantasy XIV, I have characters at various levels throughout both NA and EU data centers. ESO, obviously, I have a podcast about that, so I'd be disingenuous if I was to have a podcast about that without playing it.
That would be really tricky as well. Just, you'd be taking all these stabs in the dark, just like, I don't know. I've played a bit of Elder Scrolls Online, but I don't think I'd be knowledgeable enough to host a podcast. I'd probably be like, so what about those mud crabs or something like that?
Wait, does that mean that I need to be playing World of Warcraft to be on this podcast?
Yes, Marty. You haven't been playing this whole time? You've just been guessing?
Let me go sub real quick.
You've had some really good guesses then. And I have also dabbled a bit with Lord of the Rings Online, Guild Wars 2, several other MMOs that I can't think of off the top of my head.
SWTOR?
Yes.
I mean, he had to say it. Marty's bit of a meme is just bringing up Star Wars The Old Republic on this show. Marty, why do you tell us a few MMOs that you've dabbled a bit into as well? I mean, obviously, it's mostly World of Warcraft with Marty, but there was times when his head was turned and he did flirt with other MMOs.
I've played a few of them. I played ESO. I've been dabbling into that, but I would not,
Marty doesn't know what a mud crab is, I bet.
Exactly. I wouldn't even, don't invite me to your podcast because I would not contribute anything to it. Also been playing some Final Fantasy a while back, and obviously SWTOR, but also, what was it called? Rift? Is it called Rift?
Oh yeah, Rift. Yeah, that was a game.
We played that for a hot minute. And the one that stopped.
The one that really should die at this point based on the monetization practices.
I don't even know. I only played it back then.
It got bought out by NCSoft, and the monetization is just truly awful.
It's rough. Right. It is rough.
And there was another one that actually closed down
WildStar.
Exactly, that one. Which is a shame. I kind of, actually, out of all of them, except you're taking SWTOR out of the mix, I think that's one of the ones that I actually enjoyed the most.
So there we go. Well, I suppose I should say some of those I've been playing as well, just so I'm qualified to also be on this episode that I'm hosting. But yeah, like both of these fine people here, I have played some Final Fantasy XIV, Elder Scrolls Online, Guild Wars 2. I also played a bit of Lord of the Rings Online back in the day when it first launched. Also a bit of Rift that Marty mentioned there. That one was definitely at the back of my mind. So yeah, there's always other MMOs out there, and there's always that, narrative of this one's going to kill World of Warcraft, isn't it, Shanty? That's what they always say when a new MMO comes out.
Oh yeah, that's been going on since 2004. But I don't think anything is going to kill World of Warcraft at this point, aside from potentially World of Warcraft tripping over itself. And from what I've seen in the past year, they're going the opposite way from that.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think, sometimes you can be your own worst enemy. And so far, Dragonflight seems to be ticking a lot of boxes, and BlizzCon came along and gave us a glimpse of what we're going to see for the next, 10 years probably. So seems to be going the right way. However, the episode of this very episode is, what could World of Warcraft learn from other MMORPGs? And perhaps I'm going to start with Marty here. And I probably know which MMORPG he may reference in his answer. But Marty, is there some MMORPG out there that's doing something that you think World of Warcraft could learn from?
I mean, it's not even funny anymore, because World of Warcraft is actually going to do, some of the things that I really, really like about this specific MMO, which is all the warband things that are going to be introduced now, which they have blatantly stolen from SWTOR, Star Wars: The Old Republic, which is awesome. It's cool, and it's so nice that they're finally going to do it, because I think that's some of the things that I've really missed with World of Warcraft, and that I'm looking forward to, is that it's your account. It's not just that one character. So, being that reputation, that being, shared stash, stuff like that, it's amazing. I'm looking forward to it. So, but we're already getting that. But, that's the things that are so high up on my, wish list. So I haven't even looked below those points. So I don't really have anything else.
You were just like, you've been sitting on this answer for just months and months while we had this idea for this episode. Then Blizzard actually announced the thing that you wanted.
Yeah.
And you didn't have time to change your answer.
Yeah, that's it.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I honestly have to say, if this episode had taken place 2 months ago, we'd be having a much different conversation.
We absolutely would. And it's funny, Marty, that you bring up, Blizzard stole this from this other MMO, because it was the same with when Dragonflight released. I remember there was a big hoo-ha about, Blizzard have stolen Guild Wars 2's mount system. And I was like, heck yeah, please do, because Guild Wars 2 mount system is freaking awesome. And the fact that they did actually put their own spin on it in Dragonflight, and it's actually been a massive hit, because they're going to carry that forward now. Are you always surprised when you see like that sort of reaction, Shanty, about, Blizzard announcing something that's something similar, like with warbands or something? But I think everyone was actually just happy with warbands.
No, I'm not surprised, because there's always been a talking point in the community about how WoW is at its best when it takes from other MMOs and puts its own spin on it. I mean, you go back to even originally, the dungeon system was originally supposed to be closer to what EverQuest 2 was, but then they took it and they made it Blizzard's own. It's something that they've always excelled at. When they see something, iterate on it, and then put it into WoW.
Yeah, and they even did that just with World of Warcraft as a whole, because you mentioned EverQuest 2 there, and, World of Warcraft wasn't the first MMORPG ever. Sorry, Marty, it wasn't. There was MMOs before that. And I think that's what they did in that genre, is they saw what other MMOs were doing, and maybe, some MMOs were a bit more convoluted, a bit more grindy, a bit more complex, and actually they came along and made things, it still had its complexities, but they made things a lot more simple to get into. And, for someone that was their first MMORPG like myself, it was just this seamless experience to get in there, and it didn't matter what skill level you were getting into World of Warcraft at. I don't think it ever has, because it has just always been easy to fall into. Did you find that, Marty? Was World of Warcraft your first MMORPG? Because you've been around a while, I'm just wondering.
Yeah, World of Warcraft was my first. That got introduced to me by a friend, and it was like, when I tried it the first time, I was like, this is amazing. I need my own copy.
Was it your first MMO, Shanty?
Yes. And I mean, I did go back with the Warcraft franchise prior to that. During the Frozen Throne era, there was one period where this was late in high school, and, late high school, you had poor judgment. I stayed up 5 days straight just playing Frozen Throne.
As you should.
Those were the good old days, as they say. So yeah, obviously a lot of MMORPGs out there, Shanty, and is there something to start us off that you think this MMO is doing that right? I think World of Warcraft could do that in their own way.
I would love to see the crafting and professions from Final Fantasy XIV brought into WoW. They took a step closer in Dragonflight, but I mean, in Final Fantasy XIV, profession jobs have their own rotations. It's something they actually could build upon, in my opinion.
Yeah, so in Final Fantasy XIV, it's more involved, isn't it? It's not just like collecting materials and then building stuff out. You just like actually there's almost like abilities that you have, and it's like a more involved process, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And I personally love that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it increases that fantasy as well, because I don't know, it feels like professions is something they're working on, and obviously in Final Fantasy XIV as well, like your one character can level up every profession as well because of the way that works with switching jobs. Would you want to see something like that? Would you want to see like every character perhaps being able to take every profession as well?
Every profession, sure. I'd love every class like Final Fantasy XIV does with their job system. I don't see that ever coming to WoW personally. There's just way too much code to unravel to be able to do that.
Yeah, but we are just mere podcasters, Shanty. We can just say things, and Blizzard can just copy and paste some code and do it. As content creators, it's our given right to imagine the unimaginable. What do you think, Marty? Would you want, because you're someone that plays a lot of alts, would you want just one character where you could be like, yeah, all my professions on this character, I'm never leveling fishing again because I've got it on this character,
I mean, my initial...
Actually, even better, account-wide professions. Boom, I'm just saying
Account-wide professions. I actually don't know. I think I kind of like that, the idea that they are separated, because why else would I have alts then, if not for the professions? I mean, that's part of it. But on the other hand...
Mount farming.
True. But on the other hand, it would be nice that I don't have to switch characters to, get different stuff. But then, I don't know. Then you brought up fishing, and I just wish that one was account-wide.
Yes, please.
Because fishing is not fun. It's not fun gameplay. Let's just be honest about it. It's really not that fun.
I like fishing. I don't know what you're saying. I like fishing. I think fishing is relaxing. That's probably something they could also expand on, Shanty, because in Final Fantasy XIV, you have like a fishing journal. It keeps track of like how big your fish was, the weight of the fish. I don't know. I like that stuff.
And a whole like raid scenario for deep sea fishing too. So yeah, Final Fantasy XIV wins the battle there. Easy.
The battle of the fishing rods is won by Final Fantasy XIV. But hey, actually, just the way we're talking here, maybe secondary professions account-wide. That is something that...
Even that would be a big step.
Would be a big step. But again, I'm just saying words.
Oh no, I'm agreeing with you. I want it.
Yeah.
As I was working on archaeology this morning, yes, I definitely want that to be account-wide.
Yeah, I do feel like the secondary ones it's so weird that you have to do it again, because it's again that thing where, compare that to, the reputations. I've already done it on this character. Why do I need to do it again over here? Whereas the other professions make sense because they're different. So, it's they have a different. It's not if you log an alt where you have a different profession, you're not doing the same thing, but the secondary is always the same. So why do you need to? And it's not even like fun gameplay to level them up. So why do you have to do it again? It makes no sense.
Yeah, I think they got close with the Pandaria reps with the grand tokens that double your reputation gains after you hit revered on your first character. I think that they were close. They weren't there, but they were close.
Yeah, and I mean, who knows with the way warbands works in the future as well. We could be moving to a point where, a lot of stuff does become account-wide. I would agree. I'd probably say, like, we're probably never going to get, the ability to unlock all professions on one character or even have that account-wide. But who knows? Maybe. Something that I've been thinking about with this topic is what World of Warcraft could learn from other MMOs. And I don't know, maybe I should have just titled this What World of Warcraft Could Learn from Final Fantasy XIV at this moment in time. But something that Final Fantasy XIV does, and if you've never played it, there's this area called the Golden Saucer, where it's just basically a casino where you go off and there's loads of mini games, and there's a card game there that you learn called Triple Triad, which was from Final Fantasy VIII. And you could just play that game. I could just play that game. I could just subscribe to Final Fantasy XIV just to play that game. And I actually love it because you battle NPCs out in the world. I don't know if you've played, I don't know, maybe I'm talking gibberish to some people, but if you've played like Gwent, where you're like out in The Witcher 3 and you go challenge NPCs and you collect cards, I'd love some sort of like mini game within World of Warcraft that lets us go out and play something like that. Now I know
you probably say, right there. I mean,
we have Hearthstone. There we go. We have Hearthstone, but I want something just a little bit smaller, a little bit simpler. Shanty, I don't know if you've played Hearthstone recently, but a game there can take about half an hour. You know what I'm saying? I want something that can take a minute or two to play, and I think that could be really fun. And I know not just Final Fantasy XIV introduced a card game recently. Didn't Elder Scrolls Online do something too?
Yes, however, it does tend to veer toward that half an hour thing that you were talking about. But it was a fantastic addition. A whole bunch of the community, a bunch of the content creators, it just reinvigorated their love of the game, just having that new card game that they could go into and explore and strategize. So I definitely agree that something like that would be fantastic in the saucer as a whole. Something like that. Darkmoon Faire, again, they're kind of close with it.
Yeah.
But that's only up a week out of every month.
Yeah, and the Darkmoon, I mean, they've worked on it over time. It used to just be this little carnival beside Stormwind or Thunderbluff, didn't it? And then they made the Darkmoon Isle, which is pretty cool. But I don't know, you go there now and it's like, yeah, those mini games were fun like 10 years ago, riding around that little tonk, shooting targets and, being shot out of a cannon and trying to cancel the debuff in time to land in the target in the seat. That used to be fun like 10 years ago.
That one's rough when it bugs out and you just get shot short and land on the land.
Yeah. Oh, so many people have tragically lost their lives due to a malfunctioning Darkmoon Faire cannon. But there is so much potential with that island because it's an island and it's very big, and you could really expand upon
all sorts of room.
Loads of room to expand up. I know you built a roller coaster fairly recently, but
and they have that new dance studio mini game thing that when was that? Shadowlands when that launched?
I don't know, Marty, was that a thing?
I didn't even know that was the thing.
Okay, Marty's logging in right now. Marty's leaving the show to go play the dance studio.
That's how much I keep tabs on Darkmoon Faire.
But again, it's a real simplistic mini game. You're just matching what the NPC did. So,
but sometimes like just little mini games like that you can go off and do, and I think it works really well in Final Fantasy XIV because, like you say, Shanty, that area is just always up. It's always there. It's always available. Because sometimes maybe you don't want to do dungeons, or maybe you don't want to do quests. You just want to go and play a few mini games, and I think that is probably something World of Warcraft is just missing. It's missing that other hub that you could just go to and have some fun with things that isn't really related to your gear or anything like that.
And when you're saying that, I almost feel like asking, so is there anything WoW could learn from itself? because something that haven't been around for a few expansions that I miss that used to be in the game, the Brawlers Guild. What happened to that? Why is that, not being updated? Because that was fun. I want some more Brawlers Guild going on.
Yeah, and the Brawlers Guild, it's a perfect 0.5, 0.7 patch kind of content, So it's a shame that they haven't iterated on it for this, especially for this expansion.
Yeah, and I think people really like that content where they can challenge themselves, that little bit of solo content. We saw with the Mage Towers, the Mage Towers coming out of Legion was probably, it was up there as the thing that people were saying, this was great. As good as the raids were and as good as, leveling up your artifact was, Marty, right? The Mage Tower was just incredible because it offered these challenges for everyone. And you saw people that were leveling up other classes to take part in this class fantasy as well. And again, people like that. People like to be able to take themselves off. They don't have to rely on other people. And I know we may be moving towards that landscape with the War Within and Delves and such but still, sometimes it's just nice to have a little space of your own where you can do some fun stuff or challenge yourself.
Like the Chromie event, the one at the end of BFA, the corrupted Stormwind and Orgrimmar things.
The horrific visions.
Exactly, yeah. It feels like they, from time to time, do some cool things, but it's just like a one-off thing, and I think that's a shame as well. It would be cool if they actually built something that they would, expand upon, because I would love to have different versions of those because they were fun.
That actually brings me to one thing from Final Fantasy XIV that I would love to see in WoW, and they've come close with the visions with Torghast, but then they made Torghast a chore and ruined all the appeal. But something like the deep dungeons in Final Fantasy XIV, where you can go in and challenge yourself. Can you get to floor 100, floor 200, and be able to save at various points?
Yeah, that'd be cool. I mean, I think, and again, I've never played Torghast, so I'm on your podcast right now, Shanty, talking about Elder Scrolls. I don't know any mud crabs, but I know when Torghast first came out, and people were like, "Oh, this is cool. This is like a roguelike in World of Warcraft," and we've seen aspects of Torghast make its way out into the real world, into certain areas, collecting those abilities in certain zones. But I think Torghast was something that had, from what I heard, just a lot of potential and just fell a little bit short in the end. But the idea of that is still very cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
So to finish up here, Shanty, do you have anything else that you think from another MMO, World of Warcraft, could learn from?
Like I said, if you had asked me this 2 months ago, this would have been a completely different conversation. But I mean, with Delves, we're going to have a follower. With follower dungeons, we're going to have 4 followers. The trust system from Final Fantasy, basically. So, the things that are coming up are already hitting the notes that I would have loved to answer. One thing I would like to see, though, is something along the lines of the map completion in Guild Wars 2.
Ooh.
Where, you can stumble across these events on the map and it counts towards your leveling progression. And as you complete more and more of the map, it unlocks certain things.
Yeah, I was thinking about that actually just while I was sitting here, and I feel like Dragonflight's got there a little bit closer. I feel like that's the narrative of today. It's they're getting there, but they're not quite there. But in Guild Wars 2, you have these almost dynamic events that you're out in the world, you're, killing a few boars or whatever, and then suddenly, boom, something pops up and it's hey, everyone get in here. And it's really cool because you don't really necessarily know when they're going to pop up. And when they do, you just see people they head over to that and they, do an escort or they take down a powerful enemy. And something that I think Guild Wars 2 does very well with their events is sometimes it's not just a singular event. It could be something that leads to another event, and then that leads to another event. And within that, you're telling a story as well. And there's some narrative in there that you can get from that. And sometimes at the end of that event, it's okay, this town was being invaded by centaurs. Now it's not, because we did this event and it's all clear. There's some vendors here. And I think just, little stuff like that, especially with the phasing technology, It could be really, really neat to see them like make World of Warcraft and make Azeroth just feel more alive that way.
Yes, exactly. Especially if you put it in like the Duratars, the Silverpine Forests of the world, where things haven't changed for
too long.
And, you know, maybe we'll see something like that with the world revamps that we're going to be seeing coming in The War Within, Midnight, Last Titan. So we can still, you know, look back on this episode maybe 2 years later and say, oh, wow, they actually did these things that we suggested.
They actually listened to the show. And what about you out there? Do you have any ideas of what World of Warcraft could learn from other MMORPGs? We'd love to hear your suggestions. Do you agree with the ones we've picked here today? Again, we'd love to hear from you, and you can do so in the places that you do that. I want to take this opportunity as well to thank Shanty for being on the show. Thank you so much for coming on and talking MMOs with us. I know it's a bit of a fantasy, wasn't it, of just, you know, thinking about what could be possible in the future.
Yes, it was absolutely my pleasure, and just a delightful topic too.
And you can find Shanty in many places, and we'll have Shanty's links in our show notes. And that brings us to the end of this episode of Talking WoW. I have been Tom, that has been Marty, and that has been Shantyman, and we have been Talking WoW.
And other things.
Thanks for tuning in, champion! Did you enjoy this episode of Talking WoW? If so, why not drop a review on your podcast catcher of choice, or leave us a comment? You can find Talking WoW on Twitter or YouTube over at Talking WoW. Hope to see you again soon!